Welcome to the Business of Race podcast, where we explore issues of race and racism, the impact they have on businesses, and how employers can create a better working environment for everyone. I'm your host, Regina Newkirk-Rucci, and welcome to the conference room. Today, I am joined by the effervescent and also lovely Dr. Kimberly Allen, the CEO of 90 Forward. It is always a pleasure to have you in the conference room.
I enjoy being here, Regina. Thank you.
All right. So we're going to start off today with just a little water cooler conversation. You know, we've been off for a minute. We're going to catch up to see what's going on. And so I know we're getting into the time of year where people aren't necessarily thinking about it, but maybe it's just because I really need one. I really want to talk about vacation spots.
Okay.
You know, so if you were thinking about a good place to go, what would be a good spot that would be on the top of your list?
I think the top of my list right now is some place that's secluded with lots of sun, but not a lot of people. I want to be in complete silence. I want to be in nature. I want to feel the sun on my skin. I want the water on my toes, the sand on my legs. I want the full tropical experience. Not the heat, though. If I could take this weather that we're having right now with me, I'd do it 100%. But I'm looking for someplace tropical, but also secluded.
Well, you know, I had an idea until you got to the sand part, because I used to go like every couple of years and go for a spa vacation. So go out to New Mexico was my spot and just be in the middle of nature, really relax. They had these geothermal pools you get in. It's just rejuvenating. And I would go by myself. You could hear coyotes howling in the middle of the night.
That's too far.
That took the relaxing right out of it.
Right out of it.
They were far away.
Okay.
They were far away. But, you know, just a chance to rejuvenate, I think. And it was that alone time. Let me sort of revamp, re-energize, refresh. And I think we really have to be diligent in making sure that we actually take some time to do that.
Yeah, for sure. You cannot forsake yourself.
Right. But I definitely need to start planning a place. Do you have any island destinations in mind?
Well, my girlfriends and I just took a trip this summer to Jamaica, and that was heaven on earth for me. So if I could go back and do it again, minus the resort, like put me in the mountains or something, I think it'd be like a 10 out of 10.
Oh, okay. I'm actually going to Jamaica next year with some Lion sisters. So.
Oh, fun time. Yeah, we should talk then.
Yeah, we're going to celebrate. But it should be a good time. I've never been to Jamaica. I've been to several other spots in the Caribbean, but
it's beautiful.
Not Jamaica.
It's beautiful.
All right.
And with your girlfriends too, it makes all the difference.
It's going to be great. It's going to be great. I'm really looking forward to it. And, you know, obviously just a little time to rejuvenate and rest up for me too as well. So that should be good.
Good.
All right. Well, you know, since you're here and we're back, I thought today we should visit the mailroom.
All right.
Just see, we've got several people there's been a lot of things that have happened since we've been on break. And so a lot of people who have varying issues that they're bringing to us as well. And so I thought maybe let's just get into some of these letters and see what folks are saying and what kind of advice, words of wisdom we have for them.
All right. Sounds good.
All right. So our first letter says, I lead a division for my company and serve on the executive team. I greatly value diversity, equity, and inclusion and have made it a focus for my division. However, the rest of the executive team does not share the same mindset. I am the only woman on the executive team and everyone is white and heterosexual. As I have tried to bring DEI initiatives to the whole company, I am met with, let's not create problems where there aren't any, and we don't have time for that touchy-feely stuff. Their position is starting to filter into my team, with some people now questioning what we're doing even though I know we're the most diverse division and have increased our profitability by 27%. How do I keep DEI as a division value when it isn't coming from the top or supported by others in leadership? Oh, I didn't start with a light one.
No, you did not. You went straight to the jugular. Okay. Yeah. My first thought is to in order to get folks to buy in, leading with the fact that because your team is so diverse, you've seen this profitability, you've seen this uptick in production, because unfortunately DEI for some folks, there's the moral argument, there's the bottom line argument, and the messaging is different for everyone. And so saying that we should care about this because we just should and it's good for business is sometimes just not enough for folks. And so, but if you bring in the fact that here's what's been a part of my team, here's what we've done, here's what we've been really intentional about, and here's the output that we've seen as a result, and we want to multiply that across our company, then I think maybe perhaps you lead with that. And then the other side of it for me is ultimately, what kind of environment are you trying to create as part of your workforce? Because in an environment where folks are making critical life decisions with, do I stay here? Or do I go out on my own? Do I find another company that aligns more with my values? If you value the folks that are a part of your team or a part of your company, and they're saying that these things are important to them, I think that's also important to elevate. But I think that comes from your company's mission, vision, and values, right? Mm-hmm. What are the things that are staple and integral to how you operate? And DEI should not be something that is separate and apart from those things. It should be interwoven. And so making sure that everybody's reminded of that fact, I think will probably go a longer way.
Yeah, and I agree with that. I think oftentimes we want to pull DEI out and make it this special thing that we do for altruistic purposes, and it's just wonderful. It's like a warm hug. That's not business sentiment, and there is a very strong business case. And I think that's the thing. Like, you have to make the business case, which is interesting to me because she does in the letter, right? You got the most diverse division. That's and right. You've increased profitability by 27%. Now, I know that you may be met with some, oh, that's not the reason, but you can say, okay, well, here's this study, and here's this study, and here's this study, all which show that the more diverse an organization is, the more profitable it is. And you're talking about very reputable research organizations right. who have done this. And then in our own company, my division, which has the most diversity by far, I'm great for putting it on a chart or a graph, the visual representation, make the case. If I've got the most diverse department, and since we've been working on diversity, we have increased our profitability, but she says 27%, that's an argument right. that I would be hard pressed to see an executive team 100% being able to dismiss out of hand.
That's right. That's right. And I think, and I don't like to sort of play the comparison game like, hey, where's your uptick in profitability? But I think more than a quarter of a quarter worth of growth is not something to just sort of, like you said, dismiss out of hand. And that's the kind of growth that sets a company apart from other companies too, not even just division against division, but like other companies. And so if as a company you start to rise 27% in terms of your output and what you're able to accomplish in the markets, people are going to start paying attention. That means you're going to start to attract new employees as well. You're going to keep the ones that are there as well. Like it does a lot for the company by having everybody sort of singing this same song, that this effort that we have intentionally done has really done the work of helping us improve our output.
I think that's definitely, how you phrase it and the story that you tell. But I think it's also important to understand why you may be getting some resistance, because you got to know what you're up against, right? And so I think it's also, because she's saying that on the executive team, she's the only woman, everybody's white, everybody's heterosexual. This is a relatively homogenous group at the top. And so I think you have a number of reasons why you may be met with some resistance. You might be met with resistance because I don't want to admit that's a problem, right? Because said we let's not create problems where there aren't any, right? Even though we're sitting in a room of people who, for the most part, all look alike. And so admitting that there's a problem then means you have to address it. And we don't want to necessarily admit there's a problem. And so oftentimes addressing it not as a problem, but as a benefit, right? Not that there's a problem with this, but we could reap the benefit of having different perspectives, being able to reach more communities, having a wider array of thought at the table in our strategies of how we move our business forward when we have more perspectives at the table in the room making decisions.
I think this is where having a co-champion makes sense. And I hate to use it in terms of like, people aren't listening to you, so find the other white man that will sort of champion this with you. But I think if you feel like in that space that your voice is N of one, and it might not be heard because of who you are and whatever identities you present, it's worth finding who is also a champion of this, that is quote unquote in the in group, so that they can start to champion this as well. And somebody who is going to, you know, if you're looking for credit, somebody who's going to say, hey, so-and-so came up with this great strategy, and, you know, I'm really brought in. I tried it on my team. It's worked too. And I think we should all try it, whatever the thing is. But I think you have to find those folks who are, who will be in your corner, where you can have some sort of one-on-one conversations with, and you can say, I'm feeling this way, but I know for a fact that these things have worked for us, and I really want us to take it seriously, but I don't know that I'm the messenger that they will hear. And so if it's you, how can I equip you with the information, the knowledge, the data, the tactics and the strategies so that it carries forward? Because what's most important is that we get this message out.
And you're not going to be able to find that champion in the midst of the group, right? That can't be the executive team meeting where you're like, okay, who would stand with me?
That's right.
Right? That's going to have to be on an individual one-on-one basis. But you also have to recognize that if that person hasn't come forward, they may also be concerned about how the group will perceive them as well. So when you are pitching your idea, I think you're more successful if you have addressed potential fears on the front end.
That's right.
And so making sure that this isn't going to cost them, making sure that this isn't going to put them in an awkward position, you know, really saying, hey, I'm not trying to jeopardize your shiny spot on the team. Matter of fact, that's why I'm coming to you. But let's talk about how we can do this in a way that can bring more people on board with this, as well as make sure that you don't lose any of your shine in the seat that you're in.
Yeah, it's the what's in it for you conversation. And I think it's okay to call that out on the front end. In fact, I think it makes for a much better relationship and a mutually beneficial relationship if you can call that out on the front end.
Well, and you know what? And even that, maybe strategically, whose department isn't doing so well? Because now I have more of a vested interest in trying this, right? Because hey, I know that your sales were down. So I'm just telling you that I was able to increase mine by 27%. Why don't we low key just try it, see what happens after a year, 2 years, and then let's come back. Because now then, okay, hey, I tried that and my sales went up and it was great. You've got a much better, stronger argument going into the executive team, because now I've got 2 cases.
That's right.
Right.
That's
okay.
right.
Mine was already good, 27 and rising. And, you know, he was able to reverse the trend.
That's right.
So the what's in it for you conversation, and then sometimes I think it feels icky to have that conversation in the DEI space. I should be doing this for moral purposes. We should want to be more inclusive, and you should. But at the same time, business is business. Make the business case.
Yeah, I think you have to make the business case. And it's okay to make the business case. I think the business case will, I think, eventually sort of get folks on board with the moral side of it. But if the business case needs to come first, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. It's not compromising. It is really, here is the message that speaks to you. The goal is the same, whether we're talking about the moral argument or the business case argument. So how can we move both of these levers at the same time to achieve our goals?
Yeah, and I also think, sometimes we focus internally. You can look externally too. What's your competition doing? Especially if your competition is outpacing you. What does their organization look like?
That's
What
right.
does their strategy look like? Even to the case of, would this CEO, CFO, COO come and speak with your executive team or talk to the E.F. Hutton of your group, who really is going to be that tipping point person who could bring the team on? Is there an outside person who's experienced success in a similar field or relatable field that could also help swing the case for you? Again, that co-champion doesn't just have to be inside
Very
of your
true.
organization.
Very true. Because the motivation ultimately comes, like I said earlier, from the folks who are on the outside. How is our company stacking up against these other companies? And if we realize that we're not meeting the bar, and in fact we are being outpaced, that's even more, more of a business case for the argument.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
If I'm sitting at Pepsi, I want to know what Coke is doing.
That's right.
Right.
That's
So that, I think, is, not limiting yourself and really looking for solutions in a creative in places and spaces there.
That's right.
All right. Well, let's look at our second letter. This is an interesting one. It says, we have a small staff of 7 people, 5 women and 2 men, and a mix of black and white employees. We recently hired a Qatari woman who is very religiously conservative. She keeps to herself a lot, never joins us for lunch or after work events, or even general office conversation. How do we make sure she feels included and part of the group?
So I'm all for conversation. I think I would ask the question like, hey, are you feeling welcome here? Are there things that we can do to make sure that you feel like this is a place you want to join us? Because it might not be what we think. I think we sort of immediately assume that it's because of, she's Qatari or she's religiously conservative, et cetera, that perhaps she is not necessarily engaging in the culture that we've already established. When in reality, we should be looking for ways to add to our culture, and that this new person is culturally adding to what we have going on. And so there might be things that we were doing as a team that maybe because of her background, those things are not conducive to her feeling like she's a part of it. And so how can we readjust those things so that she becomes a part of that? Or it might be something altogether different. It might just be, I'm very head down in my work. I'm here 9 to 5 to do this job, and then I want to go home to my family. That's right. And so I think the conversation helps. And so I would just ask if she's feeling welcome, and if there are things that we can do to make her feel like this is a place where she'd want to stay and engage with us.
I agree. I think people oftentimes are reluctant to have the conversation when the conversation might actually be the thing that you could do that would make people feel the most included. Right. You cared enough to ask me. And just even the fact that you're writing this letter, right, is indicative of the fact that there's an issue, there's a concern, it's on your radar. So I think the likelihood that she would feel included is pretty good because it's on you're concerned about it. But people want to avoid the question, and the question would be just, okay, we are so glad you're on the team.
That's right.
We want to make sure that you're happy here. What can we do?
That's right.
To make sure that you're part of our family, right? That you're part of this team, that you're part of this culture,
right?
And you never know what will come up,
right?
Because, like you said, you don't know the reason, and hey, she may be like, "No, this is great," right? You all eat food, I don't eat, so that I really, I'm an introvert, and I just want to be by myself for lunch. I've got family obligations, which is why I can't do anything at 5:00. I got to be out the door.
That's right.
You don't know what the reasons are that she's not doing the things, and there may be some cultural differences, there may be some personality differences, and it may not be an inclusion issue, but I also would question making sure that you're open to changes.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you ask the question, you need to be ready for the answer, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you ask, hey, could we do to make you feel more included? And she says to create a space for blah, 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 blah. Are you willing to do that?
That's right.
I would really love for you all to learn some, I don't know, I have no idea what they speak in Qatar, but whatever the language is there, some Arabic, I guess it's Arabic. I'd love for you to learn something. Are you all willing to make changes to the current culture you have to accommodate the new person on the team? And I think that's it too. Like, sometimes we want you to become a part of us, but we're not willing to change the us so that you're included.
That's right. And because that's the quickest way to kill the culture for this person is they say that these are some things that will really help us to, or help me to feel like I belong in this environment, and then nothing happens.
Right.
That would be like a huge culture killer. Now you've isolated this person for sure. And the other piece of it, I think around having the conversation is going in curious, not assuming that you know why she's not involving or engaging with the team. And really saying, like you said, I really want to emphasize, like, I'm happy you're here. Thanks for being here. We want to make sure that this feels like a place where you belong, you feel included, you know that your opinions and your voice and your work matters here in this space. And we just want to make sure that it's inviting for you as well. And so, like, I can't understate that enough. And with versus going in and saying, hey, we know you're different from all of us. And so we want to make sure that you fit in here. Like, that's just, that's a very different approach that can also put up a wall and demonstrate that we're not really open. And in fact, we're relying so much on what we see versus what we are willing to learn to be able to make sure it's a space where everybody can partake.
Right. Because that is what you're focused on. Right. And so, again, you don't know how she feels. And if she doesn't feel welcomed or included, you don't know why. And so you have to have that openness in the approach, and your questions need to reflect that. Because trust me, people will hear how you truly feel.
That's right.
In how you ask the question. But I also think being very mindful of the fact that you may bump into some cultural differences, you may bump into some personality differences. So I would also really encourage having multiple ways to get the information. I think you start with a conversation. Now, me, the extrovert, of course, I'm going to start with a conversation, right? But that's not going to be everybody's preferred way of telling you something, especially if there is a problem, right? So if you have a way that you could tell me, if you have a way that you can communicate to me anonymously, it's much harder in a smaller office. Like, I know exactly who said this. But, if that's a staff survey that you're sending out to everyone and people have an opportunity to speak honestly there, that may feel a little less intimidating than a one-on-one conversation. If you have a brainstorming session and people are putting Post-it note ideas on the wall, think about multiple ways at getting the information. And it does two things. Number one, it gets at the different personality types and the different ways that people prefer to communicate. But what it also does is reinforce that this matters.
Yeah, that's right.
Right? I know my mother really likes a bed made in the morning. Why do I know that? Because every single morning I woke up, I could not leave the house unless my bed was made, right? Repetition told me that's important. Because if it matters to you, it's going to keep coming up.
That's right.
So if you're asking about inclusion, if you're asking about what can we do, what would make our work environment better? What would make you feel more of the team? What can we do to ensure that you stay here? And that's for everybody, right? That's right. Get information from everyone.
That's right.
That will really emphasize that matters to you. And just the fact that it matters to you actually probably will matter to all of your staff members as well.
That's right. I agree.
All right. Fantastic. Well, we'll just stop with these 2 letters. We've got a couple more, but if you are interested in hearing from us, hearing our thoughts, please email us at info@904ward.org, info at 904ward.org. We would love to hear from you, love to hear your questions, your situations, and this season we're going to be occasionally visiting the mailroom like this and just talking about the various issues that come up, because race inserts itself in business quite often. I mean, it's just a part of life, and
it is.
We might like for it not to be, but it really is. And I think a lot of people are trying to figure out how to deal with the issues that arise effectively. So we'd love to weigh in and help where we can. All right. So we're going to wrap up this session. We usually end with words of wisdom and our big takeaways. And I'm going to change that up a little bit for this episode.
Okay.
And I just want to say, sort of with everything that's been going on, welcoming people back, what would you say is your big piece of advice for people who are looking to delve into this DEI space?
For me, I think the most important thing, if you're thinking about engaging in DEI, is to leave room for conversation. I don't think it can be overstated or understated how far a conversation can go in helping create understanding, helping bridge gaps, and even solving issues that come up, because we're not perfect, right? There are going to be times when we drop the ball, we mishandle something in this space, and conversations go a long way in terms of mitigating those and reestablishing some safety within the space. And so you can't have too many, and you can certainly have too few. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But just don't ever forsake the intention of just engaging one-on-one in conversations with folks.
I think that is unbelievably wise advice and really critical. And so mine is going to pair with that really well.
Okay.
And that is, do your homework, right? Be knowledgeable, do some research. I think there is the assumption sometimes that we should just know. Like, we ought to know everything there is about diversity. No.
It's impossible.
It's impossible. And so really, and the research is sort of at that high corporate level. Like, you really ought to know the impact that diverse teams have on businesses, right? And the profitability margins that are raised. But you also should understand something about the experiences that Latino women are having in the workplace. And so there's a mixture of reading and talking, and try to listen more. Listen more, ask questions, right? Really improve your own knowledge base, your understanding. Be curious, right? Because I think that if you are well informed and open going into those conversations, they're going to be a lot more effective.
That's right.
You're going to have a better conversation, and it's going to have more of an impact on you and put you in a position where you can do more and really grow in the DEI space.
Yeah, that definitely dovetailed quite nicely.
It did, didn't it? You would think we planned it. Oh, well. Well, as always, it is a delight, a joy, and a pleasure to have you in the conference room. I thank you so much, Kim, for joining us today. It has, as always, been a spectacular conversation.
Thank you for the invitation.
Anytime. And thank you for joining us as well. Please, please, please click that like and subscribe button. When you do that, that helps us get our message out to more viewers just like you. And we will see you next time in the conference room. Take care.